And welcome back to another episode of the Forever Game podcast. Today we are still at Talking Waters. We did another episode earlier, but today we have a couple of the founders with us, Nick and Phil. And so we're going to hear about their kind of entrepreneurial journey separately and together. And we're going to enjoy some of the fruits of their labor in addition and too while doing that.
We have been enjoying them already. But
yes, that's correct.
We're going to continue enjoying them.
Yep. So Jamie's in charge of all the organization of this podcast, the topics that we talk about. And she spent a solid 5 minutes before we started getting that ready.
I really thought this through.
But Nick and Phil, thank you very much for letting us be here and sharing some of your delicious beer with us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
All right, so we're going to start off really quickly with...
Well, I think we're going to start off with intros.
Yeah, there you go. Go ahead.
Seems like a good spot.
Yeah. We'll start off with intros. So we want to know a little bit about your background, where you came from, where you went to school, kind of what you were pursuing, and then what led you back here to Montevideo, Minnesota. So we're going to start with Nick because Phil said we needed to do that.
Phil made the rule.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Then he's going to fill the rest in.
I like this. Yeah, so took off to college at the University of Minnesota Duluth. Thought I was going to be a doctor. You know, I had to have an important job. So I was pre-med for a bit. Took the bio classes and was having fun doing that, but decided that, I didn't want to keep going to school. I didn't want to be a doctor. I didn't want to, continue on. So started taking some business classes, thought this might be the way to go, decided I hated that. So I've got all these science credits, I'm just going to be a science teacher. So continue down that path, and that's where I went for a bit.
I so want to get into the education side of it, but I've been told that we can't.
Oh, you can dive a little bit.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Jamie.
That was so brief.
Yep, it was very brief. Are you feeling okay?
Would you like me to continue? How far do you want me to go?
Phil says you're good.
Going to be briefed.
Okay.
Couple of things. First one, side parts of this is, did you know that 1/3 of all declared freshmen that go to school that have already picked the major before they start, 1/3 are pre-med?
Why is that?
I do believe that. I believe that for sure.
What percentage of those do you think actually, just of those, get into medical school?
Well, how many of them put themselves into a position that, not just getting in, but how many?
Guessing 2%, Phil?
How many?
1.5%.
1.5%.
Isn't that terrifying?
How many what, Nick?
Well, I was just thinking, how many actually continue down that path? Whose path was it to start with?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like so many people have this idea that they need to be a doctor or a lawyer or something of major importance, right? Because those are the only people that are important in our world.
Right.
And then once they get out there and start thinking for themselves, they realize this is not what I want to do. This is what my brother or sister are doing, or my mom and dad want me to do, and they go from there. But
I agree with that.
so that was my brief.
You were one of those 1/3.
I was
But in college,
and I was not one of the 1.5% that made it.
But you were dabbling with making alcohol while in your college dorm room.
I certainly did dabble. Yes. So Duluth was a great spot for beer for sure. That's not what I started with. So I started making mead. Actually, was the first thing. I thought that would be kind of easy. I don't even know where I had come up with the idea, but I decided I was going to make some mead in my dorm room.
Because was mead trendy at the time?
Has mead ever been trendy? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I think I was just so far ahead of my time, really.
Yeah, still are.
Yeah, I think there's still time for that mead recipe to come around because it was absolute trash. Our dorm room smelled awful. I was trying to hide this from my roommate,
Which doesn't really stand out in boy dorm rooms, though. A bad smelling.
No, it's true. It's just its own different, unique smell. Wonder what that is, But it's okay. It fits. It still fits, even though I don't know what it is. It makes sense.
So you had mead just tucked away?
Yeah, I had a little armoire or something, So it's a little carboy of mead going. I had some Arm & Hammer baking soda open to absorb some odor. I had some air fresheners. And in the end, we've found out that it was not drinkable.
So how quickly did you segue to something else? You're like, ugh, mead. What did I just make?
Yeah. So as I was coming back from college, trying to find a job, in the summertime, I ended up working at an organic farm for a little bit, which transitioned me into working on a vineyard. And so I kind of became like the owner's right-hand man, basically the vineyard manager, essentially. Did that for 3 summers. And as I was going to school to be a teacher, then I kind of decided, hey, winemaking might be something I could get into. So I started toying around with the idea of making wine, did some stuff with grapes that we had picked, did some stuff with different kits that I got from homebrew spots too, and realized that was fun. It was great. The product was good, but it took forever to make the wine. I wasn't super into waiting, a year for the wine to be done. So got into the craft beer scene in Duluth and decided, hey, I think I wanted to give my fermentation science a try with beer. It was a quick turnaround. You had a lot more control over the ingredients that you were using, and I just kind of fell in love right away.
And boom. I like your new truck, by the way.
Thank you.
It's big and black and beautiful.
Yeah.
Phil, you guys had already met by the time you went to college. At the pizza place.
Phil was my boss.
Yes,
Phil
I was his
Phil was my
boss,
boss.
in 2003.
And how did you come to own that business, and what was it?
So it was Jake's Pizza, and
Still is Jake's Pizza.
Well, it still is Jake's Pizza. That's true. It was Jake's Pizza, and it still is Jake's Pizza. And I worked at Jake's Pizza in Wilmer when I was growing up, so I was interested in that trade. Graduated with a sociology degree from Montana State in 2000. Moved to Seattle for a couple years. Didn't do too well financially there.
But expanded your mind in Seattle.
Yeah.
100%.
Exposed to a lot of different things.
I got exposed to
bet.
some stuff.
Fun.
And then being flat broke and realizing that I probably wasn't going to go anywhere out there, I heard the pizza place was for sale here in Montevideo, and I knew Jake's Pizza well. I knew exactly what was going on in that trade, how to run the business, so then I purchased it and moved here in 2003
Cool.
From Seattle.
from Seattle.
And did you borrow money to buy it? I mean, you said you didn't do well financially.
I did borrow money to buy it.
Got
Still
it.
paying for that, actually.
Okay.
What year is it?
Yes, it
2019?
takes longer than you think.
Yeah, it sure does.
And was Nick an employee when you first started, or did you actually sit Nick down and hire him?
No, Nick was already a valued employee when I purchased the place.
Star employee.
Excellent
Employee of the month, some might say.
Not so sure about that, but
I
he
think
definitely
that's-
was a good employee.
That I maybe only lasted a month after Phil.
Yeah,
took
you weren't there
over.
very long. Well, you were there. You just weren't there a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was nice to have him. It was nice to meet him too. I mean, good dude.
And then you
Still is.
Well, you were a good dude back then. Just kidding. Just kidding.
we both had more hair back then, Nick, by the way. I just
Nick
think,
did.
I think
He had
about
a
those
nice
days.
I had a-
full head
Oh,
of
you're
hair.
both wearing hats.
I had a
just-
nice head of hair.
Yeah, you did.
I just think back about that and I'm like, God.
Ironic story. I was voted best hair in high school.
Oh.
This is a true story.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
What did you do with
My
your hair in
senior
high
my
school
senior
that you
year
got best
yearbook,
hair?
I was voted best hair.
Oh, that's pretty
Did
cool.
you style it a certain way, or
I had these beautiful luscious curls that I just let flow.
You did.
You know, it was a beautiful thing.
Did
It was hard to
also-
keep the ladies away, honestly.
Did you not bleach, but did you fade your hair a little bit, or was it like blonde?
Like
maybe
some
like some
frosted
bleach
tips.
tips?
Yeah, no,
Oh,
I
frosted
certain-
tips.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
man.
as a swimmer, you know, we always did weird stuff. So we would
Shave
we would
your
either
legs.
shave our head.
Shave it,
We would certainly shave our
Well, you were
legs.
shaving your head before you
but
actually had
we
to start
yeah,
shaving
for
your head.
sure. But then we would bleach our hair as
That's
well.
right.
So
That's
I
right.
kind of I rocked some dipped tips.
Dip tips. I like that.
Is that the
Just dip your tip.
is that the technical term? I don't
think
know.
so. I
You,
don't know.
everyone's got to at some point.
You have to give it a shot.
Yep.
Couple
Try it.
times.
Okay, so anyway, you go to college, you decide you get into this making beer thing. you come back here. Like, what brought you back? You took a teaching job somewhere else, and then you kind of found your way back to Montevideo, where he's still on.
It's almost
the
like
pizza
you
place.
know Nick's life.
It's almost like I heard this story before.
We've heard
No
Yeah.
way. No way. We've never done a podcast before. This is my first.
It's Nick's second, though, right?
I think it's my second.
Second?
Yeah. Yeah. So I got a teaching job in Marshall. My family was living here. My wife's family was from here. So it seemed like a good fit. My wife was still going to school. She was at the University of Minnesota in the Twin Cities at the time, going to dental school. So I was trying to live on the cheap. So I was living with my folks for a bit while I was teaching in Marshall. So I was driving back and forth.
Smart move.
Yep, trying to not be broke.
Yeah.
Was the plan to move back to this area, though?
When I decided to ask my wife to marry me, the plan quickly
Changed.
it transformed into we are going to live in Montevideo.
Yeah.
Which has
funny
been
how
which
they
has been
just-
it's been good, it's been great. This is not where I probably would have ended up, I don't think. But it's where I'm at now.
Yeah.
As soon
was
as
just
you're
curious.
like engaged to them, they just take control.
They own you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank goodness, by the way.
You made
because
that decision. Now I get to make all the rest.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
No, it's probably best. It's probably
Thank
best
goodness
for
is
me.
right.
Yeah.
It's true. I
We
agree
would
with
be
that. Without my
You'd
wife.
be lost.
I'd
Okay,
be-
sorry,
I'd be
that
in
was a
big
tangent,
trouble.
but I was curious.
Yeah, so we made it back. So I taught in Marshall for 2 years. Realized at the time that I really didn't like teaching.
Once you started teaching, you realized you didn't like teaching?
I was 2 years in, and I decided this isn't for me. I was teaching some classes that I wasn't super stoked about, which is what happens when you're a new teacher. You kind of get into that little rat race of you just do whatever they ask you to do, basically.
It's true.
And so I wasn't super stoked on it. And I had worked at a coffee shop quite a bit when I was in school, and the coffee shop here in town was for sale. And I decided, hey,
Look at the similarities.
Right
there.
across the
It's-
street
it's-
from
it's-
Jake's?
Yeah.
Yep.
across
I
the
was
street
like,
from Jake's.
I love those business classes in college so much. I'm gonna get into the business.
And I miss
world.
Phil.
And I miss
him.
seeing
and
Phil.
I know where he is. He's
Yeah.
at Jake's. So
So I quit teaching. I buy a coffee shop, and I do that for maybe a year or two before the Montevideo School District approached me about a science teaching opening. I thought, maybe it was just Marshall, maybe it was the courses that I was teaching. Maybe I do love teaching, and I'm going to give it a solid shot. I spent a boatload of money, to get this degree. Let's give it my best go. So I started teaching in Montevideo while I was still running the coffee shop. Owned the coffee shop until 2016 when we basically opened Talking Waters. But I taught for the Montevideo School District for 5 years. I think 2 to 3 years in, I realized, I really don't like teaching. I was right the first time, but I'm glad that I gave it a shot. And so I stuck it out for 5 years. Montevideo fell into this kind of underserved area, so I was able to get some loan forgiveness, which was great. So stuck it out for the full 5 years, and as soon as that was up, then started working here full time. We had actually opened up Talking Waters while I was teaching for that last year. Yep. So we opened up in July of 2016, and then I was done teaching that following spring.
Okay, so let's get into that a little bit. Like, how did the idea of starting a brewery come about? And did you know that it would be all three of you involved from the get-go?
So Phil and I had dreamt up the idea of having a brewery while obviously drinking beers, discussing the fact that there was no good craft beer selection here in town. What
Phil,
could we do?
You left Nick hanging.
Come on, man. And I had been, at this point, I'd been homebrewing for quite a bit. And I thought, I think we could give this a shot. This would actually work out. And when I bought the coffee shop, the idea was kind of to do coffee in the mornings, beer in the evenings, which is a
That is
trend.
so
which is a
trendy,
trend
Nick.
that is actually taking off right now.
That is working for
Like I said, I was way ahead of my time. It didn't work out.
Damn
The
it.
space was not great. We were leasing the space, and I just didn't have the flexibility with the area to do what I wanted. So that was part of the reason why we wanted to move on to something else. And then I had met John, actually, when I was working at the Vineyard.
John is the third owner of
John's
Talking Waters.
Yep. And so
John Skoglund.
So John had come out to do kind of a community harvest. So we were picking grapes. I'd met John and found out that he was into making wine. He was into making beer. And then it wasn't for maybe a couple of years when I decided, hey, I'm going to reach out, find out who the homebrewers are in town, try to get a little club together. And we probably had, I don't know, a handful of people that started coming to a couple meetings. And
meetings were organized by you?
Well, you know how organized I am. It was spreadsheets.
All beer dorks, calling all beer dorks in the area. Could you meet up with me?
That was basically it.
Just trying to find some friends here.
Yeah.
Trying to find some friends, and I found John. So, John was probably the only one that really consistently came out and did the brewing. So we would meet up at his place. We'd brew a couple batches. We'd meet up at my place, brew batches in the garage. And that, it lasted for a bit, and then it kind of fizzled out. And then it was maybe another couple years down the road, and Phil and I had been having conversations along the way too about, how awesome it'd be to open a brewery. And John was retiring from his job. He was retiring from Pioneer as a seed salesman and was looking for something to do and said, hey, why don't we give this brewery thing a shot? I didn't want to, I was still teaching at the time, but this was something that I really, really wanted to do, and I didn't want to pass up the opportunity. So I think reached out to you and said, John was thinking about something like this. We should all get together.
Yep.
I'm still confused about Phil's interest in this.
What
You were
mean?
not homebrewing.
I was not.
You were just That's
we were home drinking.
You own
consuming beer. Yes,
a craft beer enthusiast then
for
as
sure.
well. Like you were excited.
Got a lot of
about
that out west when I lived in Seattle. Obviously, out west was kind of a hub for craft beer, the craft beer scene. I think it kind of, I don't know if it started out there, but that definitely was blowing up out there when I lived out there.
Yeah.
And then moved back here, and obviously I like good beer. So that was about how that started. And then Nick started talking to me about the brewery part. And
it was right next door to your pizza place.
Oh, the building. You mean the building we're standing in right now?
Oh, well, I guess you didn't know that at the time.
Oh, no. I mean, I knew this place was open, but I didn't know if it would fit the bill for a brewery or not. So I just wanted to fill it with something. I wanted to buy it. And then we came in and looked at it, and Nick and I were overjoyed. We thought it was the greatest thing since sliced bread.
The building was a complete disaster.
John was not as pleased.
But in our eyes.
In our eyes,
it was a diamond in the rough.
It was a diamond in the rough.
It was done.
Got it.
So when I picture these initial conversations between the three of you, I picture like Nick standing, you guys sitting on couches drinking beers. This is like midnight, and him just like preaching about all this stuff.
It was a lot more relaxed than that, actually.
Oh, okay.
He wasn't super fired up about it. It was more logic.
Oh, it was practical.
Yeah, knowledge.
Again, spreadsheets.
I don't think there was a lot of spreadsheets at that point, but there was definitely a lot of ideas been thrown around. Mm-hmm. And Nick had his ideas about like what beers he wanted to start with, and then we started the tasting over at Java River, before we actually opened the place, which I thought was a brilliant idea. Get the feedback from the local people, and that was kind of Nick's idea, I think, and that worked out really well. So,
how long? Now I'm curious. So how many years had you been home brewing before this opened? Was that like 8 years?
Yeah, 8 or 9 years.
Okay.
Probably.
That's a long time.
Yeah, as my ideas of teaching, coffee shop teaching, as that roller coaster was happening, the one thing that I kept going back to, the one thing that was always fun to do, always fun to research, was beer and making beer, craft beer. As I would drive to and from Marshall, I would listen to, early podcasts of like Brew Strong, which was the brewing network at the time, and listen to those things and gain some insight onto like how is this process done? How is it done well? And then just doing a lot of reading, while we were, while I was doing everything else. That was the thing that I kept going back to. So,
was there ever a time where it was like you were sitting around someplace and you're like, all right, are you guys in? Like, who's in? I'm in. Okay, let's do this. How did that part happen?
Oh, that's a good question. I think
there was a napkin drawing at one point.
There was
definitely napkin.
How the brew space was going to be drawn out. You probably still maybe place. I don't know. Anyway, I think it
I'm
was
gonna sell
more.
it for a lot of
It
money.
was more. We were relying on after we decided, we were like, okay, we're going to put the brewery in this building. This is where we're going to go. And I don't know that we necessarily. But we decided. We were like, okay, we want to put it here.
Well, we had done, we got together, the three of us, and we basically did Wednesday night meetings at the coffee shop.
Yep.
And kind of got together.
Beer and pizza.
Johnny and I would bring in some of our homebrewed stuff. We'd bring other beers that we found that we were interested in, but it was a lot of spitballing at that point. But I
don't know if we ever actually said to each other at the Wednesday meetings, like, "Are you guys in?"
There was a time where you grabbed out the knife and you sliced your thumb, and you're like, "Okay, now's the time.
We're gonna do it.
Now's the time to do it."
Yeah.
So, I think we all went around and we did the blood on the.
I think it became real once I bought the building. That was for me. I think that was when I was like, okay, we're doing this.
Yeah, we're in.
Because getting the building was a pain in the butt. So that was the guy didn't want to sell it to me. He wanted too much for it, and it took a lot longer than it should have. And by the time I got the building, I think that's when we were all in. I think, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's what we're gonna say.
And then, so you had a vision of all the equipment downstairs. You had to have known how much this was going to cost. I'm just interested. This is a big capital expense up front. Not only just the building, but then all the equipment and everything. How did you guys tackle that part of it?
Somewhere along the lines, I came about this guy that was starting breweries in Colorado, and he was doing it on the cheap. He was doing it with dairy tanks and whatever he could find.
That saved us a lot of money.
And it was all about this frankenbrew system pieced together like a major experiment, And so I come about, he's got a book, and so I buy the book. It's like, I don't know, how to start a brewery, starting a brewery, something like this. And so I buy the book, we go, and we follow it, right? We go in, I find these dairy tanks on eBay, which happened to have belonged to Junkyard Brewing Company at the time.
Did.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
You weren't the first ones to think of it.
We weren't the first ones to think about it, but we were the first to use those tanks, I think, in the brewing process.
That's true.
So
I use theirs as a desk, I think.
I go up and I grab these 3 tanks. My dad and my sister, they come with. We've got a trailer.
That's a whole nother story.
And these tanks, by the way, are not light. And somehow the 3 of us wrestle the tanks onto the flatbed trailer. We drive them back down to Montevideo. I roll them into my driveway. I kind of clean them out because they're like full of dirt. They're full of leaves. They've been sitting outside. So I clean them up. To me, they're sparkling clean, right? To me, they are now
gold at the end of the rainbow.
They are gold, right? Polished gold. And so after they're clean, I'm like, okay, I'm going to bring them down and show the boys. They're going to be so excited, right? So I wheel them down, and I bring them down, and John and Phil look at each other like, what in the hell is this? You expect us to make beer in these dairy tanks? And in my mind, I'm like, this is perfect. We just hit the major jackpot. We're going to save so much money. We're killing it, right? It did cost a pretty penny, actually, to retrofit these with the stainless steel welder that we had. Yeah. But we're still using them today.
It wasn't cheap, and he did a nice job.
We're still using them. They make great beer. They're not as efficient as an actual system, a professional system would be, but people across the country are still making beer on these frankenbrew systems.
Actually, sadly enough, John just informed me that they took the old boil kettle away just 5 minutes ago.
We didn't even get a chance to say
No,
goodbye.
you guys didn't even kiss it goodbye.
No, it's gone.
I'm sorry.
But thank you, Stephen. Appreciate it.
I wish I had some sad music we could play.
I know.
Should we have a moment of silence for the boil kettle?
For the kettle.
Sorry, I didn't mean to laugh.
Okay, I think that's probably good.
That's the moment is
good.
good.
That was good.
I've
Thank
still
you guys.
got some downstairs.
Yeah.
We've got other equipment that's still down
Okay,
there,
so walk us through the setup as it is now. So you guys get the building, you retrofit it downstairs and the entryway, like the customer-facing part of it, the tap room. Those are big projects, I'm assuming. What kind of went into that side of it, the tap room side? What was it like before? What is it like now?
Yeah, okay, I'll take that one. Thanks, Phil.
A lot of demo.
So there was a lot of demos. So the front of our building is full of brick, and so there was basically that same front was inside our space, and so it was kind of like everybody got their first swing at the wall, and that was kind of like, okay, we're getting this whole thing started. So it was a sledgehammer swing into the wall. We started tearing down this brick wall. There were some office spaces up here in the tap room as well. So all of that stuff got knocked out. Once that was completely empty, like our first major like rebuild moment was putting our barnwood wall together, and everything else was in shambles essentially. But once that barnwood wall was done, we stepped back and we're like, holy shit, yep. We got ourselves a brewery, boys. This is it.
Holy shit is right.
We got it.
What else have we got to put in here? The bar needs to come in next, right? Wasn't it like barnwood wall bar?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Then we're good.
Yeah.
Then we're gonna open.
Yeah. Well, oh yeah, we were ready.
We were ready.
I don't know if we had any beer brewed
the
or
federal
not.
government, they weren't on the same page.
They weren't ready for us.
No, they were
weren't
not ready.
No.
So I can't just make beer and just sell it myself, like out of
Sure
my...
you can.
Well,
Sure.
I mean, you
Just-
can. Just get ready for the cuffs. I mean, if you want to go to jail, that's fine.
So how about that part of it? How did that go, the licensing part?
Oh,
Took
that's
a
not
little
a
bit longer than expected.
Yeah, longer than expected, but the specifics on that are definitely not one that I can answer because John handled the majority of that situation. Nick, you might be able to respond to
in
a
all
little
of
bit
our
to that.
research as to how long it was going to take, we had heard like you need to basically think about 6 months. 6 mons was about the average time that it was going to take to get your federal brewer's notice. And
Give us a year on this. What year is this?
So this was 2014, end of 2014. We probably started doing stuff. We got the building in 2014. Started at the end of that year putting together stuff for the federal government. Knew that was the first step. We had to get our federal brewer's notice before we could do anything with the state and city government. We were talking to these people as well, just making sure that once all of our ducks were in a row that we could make this happen as quickly as possible. So we kind of banked on 6 months, and things were going really well with demo and rebuilding this space and getting together the equipment. So we had originally set out like an opening date, I think for like Christmas.
Sounds right.
All right, Thanksgiving or Christmas of 2015. So we had this giant, like opening soon coming soon.
We're
Talking
coming.
Waters Brewing
No stopping
Company.
us now.
The front of our building, and people are getting super excited. We can't wait for you guys to open up. We're so excited. Awesome.
So are we.
For Montevideo to have something like this. We're like, thank you. Yeah, we're super excited too.
It's gonna be soon.
It's gonna be awesome. We're waiting by the phone for the federal government, the TTB. They're gonna call us any day. And we're like, oh man, we should probably, as time goes on, we should probably bump our opening date. And so then it was like, we're gonna open the new year of 2016. We're gonna be open.
New year, new us.
We're gonna do it.
New us.
Yeah, we're gonna be there.
That quickly shifted to St. Patrick's Day. We're like, this was meant to be. We should probably open a brewery on St. Patrick's Day, right? Like this makes sense.
Yeah.
That quickly shifted again, and finally, I think we started brewing. We were able to start brewing like June of 2016, and we opened mid-July of 2016. I think we had 6 beers on tap at the time. So a lot longer than we thought it was going to take. Everything else was, I think, basically ready. We were just kind of sitting at the ready as soon as they said yes.
A marketing related question. What were you guys
You
doing?
wouldn't ask one of those, would you, Jamie?
What were you guys doing to document this process of opening? Were you doing that, or were you amping up the community? Was there here's what's going on today, and then here's what's happened? We got delayed a little bit. Shoot, was any of that communicated?
I wouldn't say it was day to day, and I don't know. Nick was doing some social media at that point, so you'd have to ask him about that. I think
At that point, we were, I think, very committed to Facebook.
Okay.
So we were doing. There were any other platforms that we were super into.
Yeah. And I think, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that we got into some Twitter stuff. The local newspaper had come in a couple times and
a couple
kind of
articles. I think there was one in the Wilmer paper, possibly.
Yeah.
One in the. Yeah, paper here.
And then finally, Instagram was, a couple months before we started opening. We got into, a little bit more social media, but it was super sporadic.
But you did do a Kickstarter. Well, I shouldn't say Kickstarter. You did Indiegogo. Crowdfunding.
We did crowdfunding. Yeah, we did Indiegogo.
Which is marketing, another form.
Yeah. So like I said, we were way ahead of our time. Super good at the marketing aspect.
I would say one thing to gain out of that perspective is to have a marketing person before you open. That's
well, I think as we look,
no slam on Nick, but it's tough to be the head brewer, the owner, the guy doing the floor. By the way, Nick put the floor in here. He did
the guy on his hands and knees.
Yeah.
And then also do the marketing, and then putting together the beer and putting together tastings and stuff like that.
It does become sort of an afterthought.
Well, for sure. I mean, you're concentrating on bare bones stuff where you're not thinking about we got to let these people know we put the barnwood wall up, or we got to let these people know, how far,
Well, yeah, and at this point, you're just trying to stay afloat. You're just trying to get, from one day to the next.
Yeah.
And so you automatically go to the things that you're the best at, right? The things that you're good at.
Or the fire that's burning today.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The thing that needs to happen, right?
Yeah.
Or at least what you think needs to happen. And for us, that was, getting our beer made, getting our doors open, getting those things
and getting
done.
this place ready to go.
And to be honest, marketing wasn't something that was at, the forefront of our minds.
Well, I wouldn't say we did a bad job. I just didn't say I just wouldn't say it was a focus.
Well, we
point.
never believe anyone's doing enough marketing, right?
Well, I know you too. Yeah.
But what was just really in a nutshell, what was the crowdfunding campaign that you did? Because that's a cool part of your brewery.
Yeah, so when I had done some research on really small breweries, this was when I was going to open a brewery at the coffee shop. At the time, nano breweries were becoming this really big thing. So basically, all of these home brewers that thought their beer was really, really good said, hey, I'm going to get into this craft beer thing. I don't have the money to throw at this big system, so I'm going to start on like a 1-barrel scale, right? 2-barrel scale, 3 barrels, whatever. It's tiny. But they're making it work, and it was a great proof of product. Like, okay, now I know that I can do this. I can sell it. People enjoy it. I can make it
minimum viable product.
Yeah, absolutely. And so they really got into it, and then they could expand from there, right? And so I thought, this is going to be great. It's going to work out. So I had actually, me and a buddy had taken a trip through Duluth, through Wisconsin into the UP, and we went to Marquette, Michigan, and checked out. Wait for it. Black Rocks.
I was just going to say Black Rocks.
Thank you. Yeah, so we stopped at Black Rocks. At the time, Black Rocks they were on like a 1-barrel system, and I thought, this is the way that we're going to go about it. But while I was there, they had these awesome ceramic mugs that basically was their mug club, and they're hanging all over this really cool house is basically what their tap room is. And I thought, we have all of these awesome local artists, and we have these local potters, and I thought, what a great way to bring them into this. And part of what we wanted to do was to be very community focused, and so what better way than to bring in these local craftsmen or craftspeople, right, to do this. And so part of our crowdfunding was to open up this mug club membership. And so we started with 50 mugs was the whole idea, and right away we did a year-long membership. You could do a lifetime membership. So year-long was like $100. Lifetime was $500. And then you could do lifetime with a free beer for life. So that was $1,000. You get 1 free beer per week for the rest of your life. So we did that. We did I think we threw in some T-shirts and stuff and did some of those things as well. But the Mug Club was really kind of the driving force to get some extra money coming in that we eventually used for our first 2 fermenters. Or cycle brew tanks, yeah. Yep.
And it still is like a thing. Every time somebody comes in here, they ask about the mugs.
Yeah, and so
100%.
From year 1 to year 2, we doubled our mugs, so we went to 100, and then we kind of decided to stop there. We wanted it to seem like it was kind of VIP, that it was special, it's exclusive, and I think it is cool. It's a great conversation starter. It's a great way for people to find out about the artists that we have in and around the area. And then that goes for a lot of the design and the space in our tap room as well. We wanted that to be something that showcases local artists and people that have helped us along the way.
Yeah. That kind of leads into my next question. Like, what when you open the space and with the brand itself, like, what kind of vibe? What's the brand about? Like, what if you had to describe kind of what you were going for? What did you want this place to feel and be like? Like, what did you want the brand to be?
Well, Phil's the interior designer.
Oh my gosh. That's a lot to ask.
Rustic, industrial,
It
rustic.
started with the barnwood wall, like you said. Once we had that up, if you look around, everything else in here kind of matches with that barnwood wall. That was kind of the beginning. So it was like, okay, we have the barnwood wall. Now we're going to do a mural. I don't know if we did that. I don't know how far off that was.
Yeah, that was probably next.
The mural, the bar, everything that's going to kind of hone in on that barnwood wall.
But are we showcasing? Were you like trying to showcase outstate Minnesota in a way, like have a different vibe than what other breweries that were opening were able to do?
I'm not so sure that I ever focused on that. Nick, you might want to take that, or John did a lot of stuff in here.
Well, I think the idea was that we were going to focus on what our community had to offer. So, we had Milena Handine come in and do the mural that I think is, one of the biggest, things that attracts people's eye as they walk into our space. Dale Peterson did the bar. The mugs were done by Gene Tokheim to start with, and then Bill Gossman had jumped in to do some of the extras. But a lot of what we were doing was based on what do we have in the area, who do we have as a resource, and what can they do for us, and how can we make that all kind of meld together. And so I think they had a big hand in kind of taking us along the path as to where this was going to go.
Yeah. Where'd you guys come up with the name?
We went over a bunch of names, the three of us, back and forth, texting and stuff. And then Nick came up with Talking Waters.
I think it was one of those random word generators, wasn't it?
It was not.
I think you had a pretty good idea to incorporate it with a local lake, La Caparo, the lake that speaks. And that's kind of where you came up with that, I think.
Yeah, so we wanted something that was tied to our community, tied to where we're from, tied to the area, and something that would speak to the people that are from here, right? And something that they could be proud of. So just playing around with some of the things that we had, whether it was geographic or whatever, La Caparo came to mind, and that's the lake that speaks. And so we just were playing on words and came up with Talking Waters, and we threw out probably 5 or 6 names to the people closest to us. And that was the one I think that resonated the best with them, and the one that they came back and said, "Oh yeah, that's the one. That's the one we want to go with." We had some pretty
shitty ideas roll through as well.
You have to.
That's where a marketing manager would have been helpful as well. But we lucked out with Talking Waters.
You guys did great.
How far along in the process were you before you came up with the name?
We had the name right away. Before we had the building, we had.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we had the name.
Yeah, we came up with the name.
We were sitting down at those Wednesday night meetings.
That was a part of it.
We were throwing around a lot of these little things.
Yeah.
And, I think once we had the building and we had the name, that's when we were like, okay, yeah, we've got something.
I think that was actually discussed.
Going after.
We better get a name first, boys, before we.
Well, it's like you're thinking about this thing. You kind of want to call it something. You're like, wow, what? But we're going to talk about this thing.
Not just the brewery.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we call it now. I'm going down to the brewery.
Well, it's gotten less exciting.
Yeah.
Well, T-Dub.
About that.
T-Dub. Does anybody call it T-Dub? Like
I call it T-Dubs all the time.
Sometimes.
I do.
I call it
T-Dub.
Not a lot. I call it the brewery.
I call it T-Dubs all the time.
T-Dubs.
That's because he loves T-Dub.
I do.
Buffalo.
That's
Buffalo
right.
Wild Wings
He's a
fetish.
T-Dubs fan. That's right. Yep.
I just like wings and beer, and they have 3 words that describe their business, and that's 2 of them, and the other one is sports. So
you were in luck because we're gonna do a wing and beer.
We are. Well, that's right. There's a prelude.
Well,
told you about
we cannot
divulge that information.
Oh yeah, we don't know the
details.
exact date yet. We have no idea if it's actually going to happen, but we'll see what happens.
No, it's going to
No,
happen.
it's happening.
Coming
It's
soon.
happening.
Okay.
Wings and beer, they are going to be thoughtfully paired.
Thoughtfully paired.
Yeah.
And then just
table 212.
unthoughtfully consumed by
Just
me.
devoured. Yeah, exactly.
Consumed.
Yeah.
The way that they are meant
The
to
way that
be.
they should be, for sure.
Okay, so boys,
Yes.
it's been 3.5 5-ish years.
Okay.
Like, let's talk about what's happened since then. Like, what's been the last year, the focus of the brewery in the last year? Like, how has it grown? And
Nick, go ahead, and then I'll fill in because I think I know what you're going to say, and it's probably the same.
We
thing
haven't
I'm
really
gonna say.
grown vertically. We've
oh,
grown.
you're still the same height.
We've grown.
You've actually lost
way,
weight.
maybe?
You've actually lost weight.
Yeah. No, a lot of our focus has been moving towards
Right over there.
thoughtful distribution, right? Like
crawlers.
how can we be as efficient as possible and effective as possible as getting our beer out to people?
Yeah.
You know, right away distribution started as basically a form of marketing, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're not making
Some
great
kegs,
margins.
you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of keg accounts right away. You know, how can we get our beer in front of people that are within maybe a 60-mile radius who would be willing to drive to our tap room on a Saturday? So that's how we started. We did that, you know, right away. Probably year 2?
Was it? I remember
Thanksgiving time.
Our first account was O'Neill's.
2017, Yeah.
Shout out to O'Neill's.
Yep. They were the first ones to take the lead.
They
and
took
bring
the
us
lead.
on.
Yeah, they did some research. They came over and had a bunch of beer and figured out that our beer was good. So
Nice.
yeah, that was nice.
But now I think the last year has been us trying to expand our reach, trying to get in front of a market that has the ability to communicate what our brand is about to other people that we might not have a direct tie to.
Yeah.
So how can we get our beer in front of the people in Minneapolis, St. Paul area who have, you know, who are throwing their stuff out on Instagram? How are they going to be able to be promoters of our brand so that, you know, we can move off into a different direction and promote it that way? So trying to get, you know, little fans along the way and little, basically, you know, brand ambassadors that are going to go after and seek out our product, but also promote the hell out of it. And so trying to be strategic in the beer stores that we're going to and then we're selecting that we're trying to sell to, because we know that they do a nice job of promoting things. They do a nice job of promoting things on social media, and their customers are doing the same thing, right?
Yeah.
They're drinking the beer, but they're not just drinking the beer. They're drinking the beer and they're posting it, right? They're posting it to their friends, they're posting it online, whatever it might be. And so we're getting more and more, you know, traction as in terms of, I don't know.
So the last year and a half has been kind of like heavy, ramping up distribution. So now
Yes.
you have tap accounts and you have liquor store accounts. And now how many do you have?
Between the two, we're right around 75. You know,
Okay.
between draft accounts and stores.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's quite a bit.
that's an increase.
That means a lot of cans going out the door.
A lot of cans, a lot of growlers. Yeah, but it's nice we can do it in house, so we can do our own brands and our own unique beers that we do 5-barrel batches of. We can just growler them here and then, you know, distribute them to the cities, and that's working out pretty well for us, I think.
Cool.
Yeah.
Can you guys tell us real quick the beers you have on tap and like what they're like?
Yeah.
You want to start with Farmer's Town?
Sure. So Farmer's Town was a beer that we knew that we needed to have on tap. This is a beer that we always have, or we really try to always have. It's a cream ale. It's a light, easy drinking, very approachable beer. This is a beer that, you know, in a community where it was very heavy on like the you know, large macro lagers, right? The Bud Miller Coors kind of people. We knew that we had to have a beer that was going to get people in the door, that was going to allow them to try something and then move on from there. So Farmer's Town is that beer, and it's done really well for us. Zoomer Red started out as a beer named after my dog, who is this very hyper, super hopped up red lab. So it was originally going to be this Imperial Red IPA, essentially, and it's gone through a lot of renditions. And right away, it was like 7.5%, 8%.
Wow.
And but this is when we first started, and all of a sudden we looked at our tap list, and everything was basically above like 7% for a while.
We were a little out of control of that.
But you were ahead of your time, because high ABV beers.
High ABV beers. We knew that wasn't going to last with people that were new to craft beer in this community. So some of those beers actually started moving down in ABV, and Zoomer Red was one of them that became a little bit more drinkable, I think, because of it. In the limelight is a kettle sour, a pastry sour, something that we've been playing around with quite a bit, trying to incorporate culinary ingredients into some of our beers, whether it be milkshake IPAs or some of our sours that we're doing, and kind of toying with some pastry stouts as we move forward. But that one's kind of designed after a key lime pie. And then Square Nail is our flagship, I guess, if we're going to call it something a flagship. That's our flagship IPA. One that, again, is usually always on. It's very much a West Coast style IPA. It's clear, which is crazy, right? It's crazy clear.
Crazy clear.
Clear beer is making a comeback.
Clear beer is
Sure
coming
is.
back. It's coming back.
Like Zima? Like a Zima?
Zima
not
came
like
back
Zima.
briefly.
Yes, it did.
Briefly.
It did.
It didn't have
last long,
anything to
did it?
stand on, no.
No, it's
However, those hard seltzers though, they're making a move.
hard charge.
Do those happen to be gluten-free?
They are gluten free. Do you know anybody that would enjoy a gluten free product here at
Can't
Talking
think of
Waters?
a single one.
Yeah, I mean, if it's convenient.
We actually have a Culligan water jug. Is that what-
We do.
dispenser?
You guys had a Diet Coke in the fridge over there.
very gluten free. Phil, do you want to take some of the other ones?
Philly, number 5.
Wavelength. A sour with no fruit. With no
Genius.
fruit. I know.
Genius.
So just hop character comes out in that beer. I think that beer is fantastic, by the way. One of the better ones we've done so far.
I agree.
Nice.
Cloudburst.
These names are great.
Hazy
Good job on the
IPA.
names, you guys.
Who does these names? Hazy IPA with a great hop combo. Simcoe, Citra, and Azaka.
Azaka.
Do you have a question?
No, I'm pointing to them for the video.
So if you'll notice,
clever.
For those of you who are in YouTube land,
Those of you
Yes.
playing the home game.
I think the IPAs are pretty popular because I think we have
Seven-ish.
You're
seven of
heavy
them on
IPAs
tap.
right now, but
Right now, that's going to change soon. We're coming into the darker beer season, so hopefully we'll improve on that a little bit.
so number 7 is Phil.
Pineapple Lulo Strawberry Milkshake IPA. An interesting combination of fruit, and then what are we using hops in there?
that's a good question.
Yeah,
cheat
good
sheet
question.
right here.
Yeah, honestly, I wrote them all down.
Yeah, bring that out. There's got to be some mosaic.
Idaho 7 and Cashmere. Idaho 7 and Cashmere.
I didn't want to embarrass you and rattle it off.
Sorry about that. Oh yeah, you have them memorized, don't you?
8.
Nick, go ahead with 8. Blurred
Yeah,
lines.
blurred lines. So this is
M&M.
Mandarina.
M&M.
I was just thinking of the hop.
Oh, mosaic and
reminding
Mandarina
you of
Bavaria.
the hop combo.
Yeah,
I like
and
that.
There are
hop
no
combo.
M&Ms in there.
No.
Hazy pale. It's it's got the mouthfeel right away of a great hazy IPA, but it actually kind of vanishes and finishes quite dry. So it's one that you can really drink quite a few of.
Some would say crushable.
Crushable. I agree. Those are my favorite.
Reality Check Pills is one of our newest on tap. We don't get a chance to have lagers on super often. It's something that we'd like to do more of. Played around with some light lagers, and I think this is one that has come out to be maybe our best so far. One that we're pretty proud of.
I think so.
Right amount of bitterness, one that's approachable. We've had a Pils on that was, I think, very much to style, but certainly more bitter than some of the people around here are used to. So we wanted something that was more Midwest Pils, right? Something that was a little bit more approachable, and I think we came out with something that's also super drinkable. And then Pillow Talk. Pillow Talk was one that we played around with some really interesting hops to us. So that was, what do we have in there? We had Enigma, Cashmere,
Hallertau.
and Hallertau Blanc.
Hallertau Blanc.
So some things that we're throwing very different flavors than we're used to, and some hops, and it's come out to be kind of a Jekyll and Hyde beer for us. It's one that it really changes characteristics every time you drink it. But I think it's super soft, pillowy mouthfeel. This one's got lactose in it, which is not the first beer that we've put lactose in, but the first hazy IPA that hasn't been basically a milkshake, that we've kind of dosed in a little bit of lactose to get that nice pillowy, soft mouthfeel and add a little extra residual sweetness, or the perception of anyway. So that one's kind of interesting. It's been fun to see people's reactions to that beer too.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much. Are we gonna?
Well, can we wrap up with something positive other than the beer list? Let's
Sure.
something really interesting.
You're the
let's,
boss.
Let's put them on the
Boss
spot.
lady.
Let's put them on the spot a little bit.
Okay.
Sounds good.
You're up.
What's been I want each of you to answer this, the biggest surprise owning a brewery?
Nikki.
Phil's
He's not the biggest surprise. He's going to answer first.
What's like one thing you didn't expect that's really hard as a business owner?
Well, we talked about it earlier. It's the idea that, and this is any entrepreneur out there, right? That once you get started and you start a business, unless you've done something before and done really well at it, or been educated well enough by somebody who's been in that, basically in the trenches, right? Mm-hmm. You are forced to, or you think you're forced to do everything. So you are the brewer. You are the air quotes marketer, right? You are the person that's going out there and selling the beer. You're the person that's delivering the beer. You're doing all of these things on your own. And it's busy, right? It's hard. It's really tough. And it's not the best way to go about it, but a lot of times it's the way that you have to go about it when you start, and we get that. But I think we've been fortunate enough as time has gone on, and we're still doing it, right? We're still trying to basically source certain jobs out to different people that do those jobs really, really well, because we know if this is going to be a company that is sustainable and lasts forever, right, or as long as we really want it to, we have to have people in our corner that are doing things better than we can, right? Because I'm not the best at certain things, right? I know that I do one job pretty well, and that's the thing I'm going to focus on. And we have other people that do those other jobs really well, and we want to make sure that they're on board and they're on a part of our team. So I think right away it was, being able to give away some of that responsibility, one that you kind of hold dear because this is your baby. Like, you don't want anybody else to hold your baby. But eventually you got to realize, like, you're not going to make it. You're not going to survive unless somebody else can babysit this part and they can do this. And so I think that's been a surprise, not a surprise, but something like a realization that we're coming to, lesson learned for sure, that as soon as you can do those things, as soon as you can afford to do it, and as soon as you can step back and like, again, let your ego go and say, yeah, you are better at that than I am, you go ahead and do it. I'm going to focus on this. You focus on that. I think the sooner that you can do that, the better off your business is going to be. For some people, it takes longer to realize, but I think, yeah, the sooner that can become a realization in your life, for one, the happier you're going to be in what you're doing too, right? Because it's super stressful to do things that you're not great at. Yeah, it helps you learn. It helps you, grow. And it's nice to have those little pieces of information in the back of your mind for when you need it and when you need to throw out an idea or something like that. But you're going to be so much happier doing the things that you love and the things that you're good at, and letting somebody else do the other things.
Things that they love.
Yeah, for sure. And it's way more rewarding too to bring other people into your business, and you're going to figure out that you're going to go in a direction that you had no idea was possible, and probably a lot faster than you thought was possible as well.
Great answer.
Well said, Nick.
Thank you.
I agree with 99.9% of that.
Let's talk about that.
I would also say
0.1%.
No, that's fine.
What is that thing?
I would say he touched on a lot of stuff that I dealt with owning the pizza place next door and then walking away from that. Not walking away from, but essentially not being there at all, which was difficult at first because obviously I was there all the time before this place started. And it was just a slowly, like, kind of let go that was hard for me to do. So I know exactly what he's talking about. You want to be on top of your business the whole time.
Yeah.
I would say for me, the most surprising thing or the most kind of like scary thing is, so I was in a pizza market here in town locally. That was it. I was responsible for Montevideo, Minnesota, basically.
Yeah. What's
scary to me is how far-reaching our beer is now, and the expectations, and the laying awake at night or waking up and going, God, I don't know, man, was that the beer you want to put out, or was that like the self-doubt or is this what we really wanted to do? Or you're in the basement and you're like, we worked so hard on this, and then we get done with it and we're like, but this isn't what we wanted, or something like that. Whereas over there, it's like you've got your simple ingredients, you've got your pizza. It's not really changing. You're not developing it as much as here. And here's a gamble every day. It's like, Nick will come up with a recipe. Sorry about hitting that. And then it's like, oh, we've never done that before. Or we're combining new hops today. Or we're doing this. Or we changed the grain bill. Or something along those lines where the expectations are high now too. So you have to meet those expectations. And the broader our market gets, the higher the expectations are. So I think that's something that's definitely hit me.
Nice.
Yeah. And the market's competitive, right? And people are doing kick-ass jobs at beer right now, right? So it is super challenging and super demanding because everybody else is, people are killing it. Yep. So if you're not, you're behind.
Yeah, you have to stay ahead of the game.
You need to make sure that you are doing your job. And we want that anyway, for everybody to do that with craft beer and make sure that their product is good so that the people that are having craft beer somewhere else, maybe for the first time, are going to stay in love with it and eventually become our customers or something like that, right? And instead of people that are just, I was a home brewer, I'm going to give this a shot. They throw out a product that's not great. People try it for the first time and decide, my assumption is right. Craft beer is not for me. I'm going to go back to my macro lager and just live the rest of my life without flavor.
You don't want that.
Or fun.
You don't want that.
So to wrap up, because you guys literally have to open in 8 minutes.
8 minutes.
Is this what you thought it was going to be? Is Talking Waters, is this a success? How would you define success and what's next? And then that's it, I promise.
I'll just do a short answer. Definitely more than I thought it was going to be, because when we started this, John and Nick were kind of going to be the brewers. We didn't go into this at all, which is fine, but I was kind of, and I got into it a little more with Nick when I started home brewing with him, and I was more interested, but I wasn't necessarily going to be as involved as I am now, which I'm happy about. I'm happy that it took this direction. So more for me than I ever expected. Success, you said?
Yeah.
I don't think we're there yet. I mean, I think we're definitely climbing that hill. I think we're on the upward swing.
Well on your way.
Yeah, that's what I think at the moment.
Yeah, I like that. I think success isn't necessarily that thing that's at the end of the hill, though. I think if we're better today than we were yesterday, then that's a success, right? If we're making the right steps and we're going up that hill and we keep moving forward and we enjoy what we're doing, then we're successful. And I think we're there. I think we're doing what we need to do to move our business and our brand forward. I think every day we strive to be better than we were yesterday, and I think we're doing a great job at that. Sometimes it's not as fun as you think it's going to be or as easy it's going to be, but in the end, as you look back at the trend, I wouldn't want to do anything else, right? I'm having fun doing what I'm doing, and we're making progress
so that's
every day.
So
I think we are successful.
If you're,
how big do we want to be? I don't think we know yet. I don't think we know. And that's constantly changing. We've always had ideas. You had an idea a year ago, 2 years ago, a day ago, and that's constantly evolving. And
squash that idea. That sucked. Let's move on to something else.
We're off to the next. Yeah. So I think success is us trying to be better every day, and that's something that we're proud of and something that we're doing, I think, pretty well right now.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, you guys. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you.
We'll enjoy some more beers.
Thanks for the podcast experience. We loved it.
Good job.
We would love to do this. We'd love to do this
First
again.
time's the charm.
If you guys do second podcasts,
you guys want to do another podcast?
If you're into seconds, we would totally.
This first one was really good.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, guys. Check out Talking Waters Brewery in Montevideo, Minnesota. Stop by and have a few.